Did you ever pray for something impossible and wake up to find it bleeding on your doorstep? Arizona Territory, December 1878. The wind screamed across Mogollon Rim like something dying. In the darkness of his barn, Caleb Brennan knelt in frozen hay, his massive frame hunched over a woman he'd never seen before. Snow clung to his thick black beard. His calloused hands, scarred from war and work, trembled as he pressed them against her throat, searching for a pulse. She was Apache. That much was clear from the silver jewelry at her wrists, from the geometric tattoos barely visible beneath the ice crystals coating her copper skin. Her black hair lay matted with snow and blood. Her dress, thin cotton meant for warmer days, was soaked through and frozen stiff. But it was her belly that stopped his heart. 7 months pregnant, maybe more. And her hands, even unconscious, even dying, were wrapped protectively around that unborn child. Blood stained the snow beneath her. Not much, just enough to paint a story Caleb had seen too many times before. Someone had hurt her. Someone had sent her running into a blizzard, with nothing but the clothes on her back, and a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she could outrun whatever monster was chasing her. Behind him, a small voice cut through the howling wind. "Papa, is that the angel I prayed for?" Caleb's 8-year-old daughter stood in the barn doorway, her small frame backlit by the lantern she carried. Willa Brennan had her mother's gray eyes and her mother's steady gaze, the kind of gaze that saw through every wall a man tried to build. "Get back inside, Lou." Caleb's voice was rough as river stones. "This ain't something for children." "Is she alive?" "Barely." "Then she needs help." Willa didn't move. "That's what Mama would say." 3 days earlier, Caleb had stood at his wife's grave for the 100th time since they'd buried her 4 months back. The fever had taken Rebecca Brennan in October, and with her had gone every reason Caleb had for getting out of bed in the morning. Oh, he still got up, still fed his children, still worked the ranch, still went through all the motions of living. But he was a ghost in his own life, and everyone knew it. That particular night, he'd been unable to sleep again. The cabin felt too empty, too quiet. He'd stood at the window watching snow pile against the fence posts, his coffee growing cold in his hands, while behind him his 3 children slept in a tangle of quilts before the fire. They'd given up their beds to him after Rebecca died, said he needed the rest more than them. But Caleb couldn't sleep in that bed anymore. Couldn't bear the empty space beside him where Rebecca should have been. So he'd stood at the window, watching, waiting for nothing in particular, just killing time until morning came and he could lose himself in work again. That's when he'd found the letter. It had slipped from Rebecca's Bible, the one she'd kept on the nightstand. Her handwriting, shaky from the fever but still hers, still bearing that elegant curve she'd learned from her schoolteacher mother back east. "My dearest Caleb," it read, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I know you. I know you're thinking about following me. Don't. The children need you, not the ghost of you, not the hollow man who goes through the motions. They need their father. They need you to keep living, keep fighting, keep believing there's still good in this world worth protecting. Promise me you'll try. Promise me you won't let grief turn you into something you're not. I love you. I'll always love you. But you have to let me go now. You have to live." Caleb had read that letter 3 times, his vision blurring with tears he was too proud to shed in front of his children. Then he'd folded it carefully and put it in his pocket, where it had stayed these 3 days since, a constant weight, and a constant reminder that he was breaking a promise to a dead woman. Willa had found him reading it. She hadn't said anything at first, just stood there in her nightgown, watching him with those knowing eyes. Then she'd spoken, her voice soft but certain. "Mama made me promise something too." Caleb had turned to look at his daughter. When had she gotten so old, so wise? What kind of promise? "She said you'd try to carry everything alone. She said I had to watch over you, make sure you didn't disappear." Willa had pulled her own letter from beneath her pillow. "She wrote me too, Papa. The night before she died. Want to hear what she said?" He'd nodded, not trusting his voice. Willa had read it aloud, her small voice steady in the darkness. "My dearest Lou, your papa is going to try to be strong for everyone. He's going to think he has to bear it all by himself. Don't let him. He thinks he's strong enough to carry the world. He's not. Nobody is. Watch over him for me. Remind him it's not weakness to need somebody. Make him understand that love doesn't die just because one person does. There's always room for more love, more hope, more life. Don't let him forget that. I'm counting on you." After she'd finished reading, Willa had done something that surprised him. She'd knelt beside her bed, folded her hands like Rebecca had taught her, and prayed out loud. "Dear God, it's me. Lou. I know I ask for a lot of things, but this is important. Papa needs help, real help, the kind that makes him want to wake up in the morning. I don't think I'm big enough to fix him by myself, so I'm asking you to send someone, an angel maybe, or just a person who needs saving too. Someone who knows what broken feels like, someone who can remind Papa that there's still good worth fighting for. Please, God, I can't lose him too. Amen." Caleb had wanted to tell her that prayers didn't work that way, that God wasn't some kind of cosmic delivery service, that she couldn't just order up a miracle like it was something from the Sears catalog. But looking at his daughter's face, seeing the fierce hope burning in her eyes, he couldn't bring himself to crush it. So he'd just kissed her forehead and told her to get some sleep. Now, 3 days later, Caleb knelt in his barn with a dying Apache woman in his arms, and his daughter's prayer echoed in his head like prophecy. "Is she the angel, Papa?" "She's just a woman, Lou." Caleb stripped off his heavy coat and wrapped it around the woman's frozen body. "A woman who needs help. That's what angels are." Willa set down her lantern and ran back to the cabin without being told. Within seconds, she was back with every blanket they owned. Caleb lifted the woman. God, she weighed nothing, like a bird, like something already halfway to death. He could feel how cold she was even through his shirt, could see her lips turning blue, could hear her breathing, shallow and weak, like a whisper against his chest. He ran. The distance between barn and cabin had never seemed so far. Snow stung his eyes. Wind tried to rip her from his arms. His bad knee screamed with every step, that old war wound that never quite healed right, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. He kicked the door open. The heat from the fire hit him like a wall. "Papa?" Jesse, his 6-year-old son, sat up from his pile of blankets, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Get water heating. All of it." Mercy, just 4 years old, toddled over with her rag doll clutched in one small fist. She looked at the woman, then at Caleb, then back at the woman. No fear in her eyes, just curiosity. "She's sleeping?" "Something like that, baby girl." Caleb laid the woman as close to the fire as he dared. Started stripping off her frozen dress with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He'd done this before. Soldiers with frostbite, men pulled from icy rivers. You had to get the wet clothes off first. Wet clothes killed faster than cold air. Willa appeared with the blankets. Jesse stumbled over with a pot of water, sloshing it everywhere in his hurry. Even Mercy helped, bringing her rag doll over and tucking it carefully into the woman's arms. "Baby need this," Mercy announced solemnly. The woman's eyelids fluttered. For a moment Caleb thought she was waking up. Then he realized she was just shivering. Violent tremors that shook her whole body. That was good. That meant she wasn't too far gone. Bodies that were too cold didn't shiver anymore. They just shut down. He wrapped her in every blanket they had, started rubbing her hands, her arms, her feet, trying to force warmth back into flesh that felt like marble. Beside him, Willa did the same, her small hands working with surprising competence. Minutes crawled by. The woman's lips stayed blue, her breathing stayed shallow. But gradually, the shivering lessened. Color began creeping back into her face. Not much, but enough to give Caleb hope. Then her eyes opened, dark brown eyes, wild with terror. She looked around the cabin. Fire, strange white faces, unfamiliar walls, and panic flooded her features. She tried to scream, but no sound came out, just a rasping gasp. Her hands flew to her belly, fingers splayed protectively. "Easy." Caleb raised his hands, palms out. "Nobody's gonna hurt you here." She didn't understand, or if she did, she didn't believe it. Her eyes darted to the door, calculating distance, weighing chances. Caleb had seen that look before, on trapped animals, on slaves who'd run north during the war, on people who'd been hurt so many times that kindness looked like another kind of trap. "You're safe," he said again, slower this time. "Safe. Understand?" "Husband." The word came out destroyed, raw, like it hurt just to say it. "Husband coming?" "No husband here, just us." She tried to sit up, made it maybe 3 inches before her strength gave out, fell back against the blankets, breathing hard. Tears streamed down her face. Willa leaned forward, did something with her hands. Sign language. The kind traders used at the post when dealing with Apache customers. She'd picked it up somehow. Caleb had never thought to ask. The woman watched Willa's hands. Something shifted in her expression. She signed back. A conversation Caleb couldn't follow. "She's asking if we're going to hurt her," Willa translated. "If we're going to take her baby." "Tell her no." More signing. The woman studied Caleb's face, searching for lies, for the sweetness that hides cruelty. Caleb looked back at her steadily. Let her see what she needed to see. Finally, she seemed to make some kind of decision. Her hands moved again, slower now, drawing pictures in the air. "She says her name is Nyalnish," Willa said. "It means she works hard. White people call her Anya." More signing. Willa's face went pale. "Papa, her husband did something bad. She says he killed 3 wives before her. She heard him talking about what he'd do if the baby was a girl. She had to run." Caleb felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. 3 wives. Nalnish nodded, used her finger to draw in the ash on the hearth. A man with a knife, 3 crosses, then a pregnant belly with an X through it. "He'll come," she whispered in broken English. "He always come. He find me." "Let him come." The words surprised Caleb as much as they seemed to surprise Nyalnish, but once he'd said them, he knew they were true. "This is my land, my home. Any man comes here looking to hurt a woman and a baby, he's gonna have to go through me first. You no understand. He have power, he have law. Law's one thing, right's another." Jessie appeared at his elbow, holding the cup of water Caleb had forgotten about. "Miss, you want some?" Nalnish looked at the boy, at his innocent face and earnest eyes. Something in her seemed to break. She took the cup with shaking hands and drank. Mercy climbed into her lap, completely fearless, snuggled against Nalnish's chest like they'd known each other forever. Nalnish stiffened. Then slowly, her arms came up to hold the little girl. She buried her face in Mercy's hair and sobbed. Caleb turned away, giving her privacy. His eyes met Willa's across the fire. "See, Papa?" his daughter whispered. "I told you God listens." He wanted to argue, wanted to say this wasn't divine intervention, just coincidence and bad weather. But looking at Nyalnish holding his daughter, looking at the hope starting to bloom in his children's faces for the first time since Rebecca died, he couldn't bring himself to say it. Maybe Willa was right. Maybe this broken Apache woman freezing in his barn was exactly what they all needed. Not an angel, something better, something human. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, for the first time in months, Caleb Brennan felt something like warmth returning to his chest, something like purpose. He checked the loads in his rifle. Whoever this woman's husband was, whatever kind of man sent his pregnant wife into a blizzard, he would come looking eventually. And when he did, Caleb would be ready. Because Rebecca had been right. There was still good in this world worth protecting, still things worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, fighting for someone else was the first step toward living again. 2 days after Caleb pulled Nalnish from death's door, the woman still wouldn't look him in the eye. It wasn't fear exactly, or if it was a different kind than what he'd seen that first night. She moved through the cabin like smoke, helping with chores before anyone could ask, mending Jesse's torn shirt with stitches so small they were almost invisible, teaching Mercy how to braid hair in the intricate Apache way. But whenever Caleb entered a room, her gaze would drop to the floor. Her shoulders would tense. Her whole body would angle away from him like a compass needle repelled by the wrong kind of magnetism. Willa noticed it too. His eldest daughter missed nothing. "It's their custom, Papa," she explained one morning while Nalnish was outside gathering firewood. "Apache women don't look strange men in the eye. It's a sign of respect, or maybe modesty, something like that. I ain't a stranger anymore. To her you are. You're a white man with a big voice and big hands who could hurt her if you wanted to." Willa gave him that knowing look, the one that made him feel like he was the child and she was the adult. "You gotta earn trust with someone who's been hurt, Papa. You can't just expect it." So Caleb tried to make himself smaller, spoke quieter, moved slower, gave Nalnish space to breathe. And gradually, inch by careful inch, he started to see her relax. She was stronger now. The color had returned fully to her copper skin. The haunted look in her dark eyes had softened into something more like caution than terror. She ate the food they offered, simple fare of beans and cornbread and salt pork, and kept it down. Her belly seemed bigger somehow, as if the baby inside sensed safety and decided it was time to grow. Communication came in fragments. Nalnish's English was limited to maybe 50 words, and Caleb's Apache was non-existent. But Willa had become their bridge, that child and her gift for languages. She'd brought paper and charcoal from her school supplies and started creating a dictionary of sorts. Pictures matched with words in both tongues. Corn, ba-ah. Nalnish would draw an ear of corn, say the Apache word, and Willa would write both down in her careful script. Water, tu, fire, kaon, family. The Apache word for this was longer, more complex. Nalnish had to repeat it 3 times before Willa got it right. But when she did, something beautiful happened. Nalnish smiled, a real smile, not the careful half-expressions she'd been giving them. It lit up her whole face. Jesse, never one to be left out, demanded to learn too. "Teach me to say hello." "Ya ati," Naalnish said slowly. "Ya, yat, yatai-tai." Close enough. And she'd laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty, like something that hadn't been used in a long time. But it was there. Even Mercy got into the spirit of things, though at 4 years old her contributions were more enthusiasm than accuracy. She'd point at things and announce their names in a mix of English and made-up words, and Nalnish would nod gravely, as if the child was making perfect sense. Caleb watched all this from his usual position by the window, arms crossed over his broad chest, his thick beard hiding whatever expression might have crossed his face. He told himself he was keeping watch, that someone needed to stay alert in case trouble came calling. But the truth was simpler and more complicated. He was watching Nalnish, not in the way a man watches a woman he's attracted to, though he'd have to be dead not to notice that she was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with prettiness and everything to do with strength. No, he watched her the way he'd once watched wounded animals he was trying to rehabilitate, looking for signs of healing, for moments when the armor came down. He noticed how she triple-checked every door before settling down at night, how she always positioned herself with a wall at her back and a clear view of the exits, how she touched her belly constantly, that protective gesture women made when they were carrying life inside them, how she flinched at loud noises, how she hoarded food in her pockets when she thought no one was looking, storing up provisions like she might need to run again at any moment. It reminded him of the war, of men who'd seen too much combat and couldn't quite believe they were safe, even when they were miles from any battlefield. The body remembered trauma long after the mind tried to forget. On the third morning, while Nyalnish was showing Mercy how to grind corn in the Apache way, Caleb saw a rider approaching through the melting snow. He recognized the build immediately. Tall man, good seat in the saddle, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent his whole life on horseback. Native features mixed with something European. Half-breed, in the ugly language some folks used, though Caleb had never seen the point of that word. As if being born to two worlds instead of one was something to be ashamed of. The rider stopped a respectful distance from the cabin, raised both hands to show they were empty. Caleb stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, but not raised. Yet. "That's close enough. Mr. Brennan," the man's voice carried across the cold air. "Name's Jack Liddell. I'm looking for something. Or someone, more accurately. I know what you're looking for. Answer's no." Inside the cabin, Caleb heard movement. Knew without looking that Nyalnish had gone still, that she was probably trying to decide whether to run or hide or fight. "You don't understand the situation, Mr. Brennan." "I understand plenty. Understand a woman showed up half frozen in my barn. Understand she's pregnant and terrified. Understand someone hurt her bad enough that she'd rather die in a blizzard than stay with him." Caleb's voice went hard as iron. "That tell you everything you need to know?" Jack Liddell shifted in his saddle. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Can I speak plain? You're still breathing, ain't you?" "Mr. Dalton, the man I work for, he's got resources, connections. He can make things very difficult for people who cross him." "Then he should have thought about that before he crossed me." "She's his wife, Mr. Brennan. By law says a man can beat his pregnant wife, send her running into a killing storm." Caleb took one step forward. "What kind of law is that?" Jack's face twisted. Something like pain crossed his features. "I don't like it either." "Then why are you here?" "Because I need this job." The words came out bitter. "My wife. She's sick. Real sick. Medicine costs money. Mr. Dalton pays well." Caleb studied the man, saw the truth in those words, saw the conflict written in every line of Jack's body. This wasn't a hired gun who enjoyed his work. This was a man doing something he hated because he felt he had no choice. "How much?" Jack blinked. "Sir?" "How much for the medicine?" "I don't see what—" "Answer the question." $50. Jack said it like he was confessing a sin. "That's what Doc Turner wants for the laudanum and the quinine." Caleb nodded once, disappeared into the cabin, came back out with a small leather pouch, tossed it to Jack, who caught it reflexively. $50. Gold coin. You go back to Dalton, tell him she died in the mountains." Jack stared at the pouch like it might bite him. "He won't believe me without a body." "Then you got a choice to make. Money for lies, or sleep for your conscience." The wind picked up, howling across the yard like something hungry. Jack's horse stamped nervously. Inside the cabin, Mercy started singing one of her made-up songs. The sound drifted out through the cracks in the door, innocent and pure. Jack looked at the cabin, at the smoke rising from the chimney, at the tracks in the snow where children had been playing. Then he looked back at Caleb. "My sister married a white man like Dalton," he said quietly. "Trader up near Fort Apache. Good family. Respectable. Everyone said how lucky she was." He paused. "She's dead now. They said it was an accident. Said she fell down the stairs. But I saw the bruises. I saw how she flinched when he came in a room." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be smart." Jack's voice hardened. "Dalton's coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but he's coming. And when he does, he won't be alone. He'll have federal marshals with him, papers that say she's wanted for theft, papers that give him the legal right to take her back." "Let him try." "Mr. Brennan, you don't understand. This man, he's Indian agent for the White Mountain Apache. He controls their rations, their supplies, their land allotments. He's got power, real power, and he uses it. Inside the cabin, Nalnish appeared in the doorway. She held Mercy in her arms, the little girl drowsy against her shoulder, but her eyes were fixed on Jack. Recognition flashed across her face. Then something else. Not quite hatred, something colder. Jack saw her. His whole body went rigid. "Nalnish," he said in Apache. She answered in the same language. Her voice was low, but it carried. Caleb didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Accusation. Grief. Rage. Jack flinched like he'd been struck. Responded in Apache, his words coming fast and desperate, explaining something, defending himself maybe, or apologizing. When he was done, Nalnish said one more thing. Then she turned and disappeared back into the cabin, taking Mercy with her. "What did she say?" Caleb asked. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. "She said I helped him, that I tracked his other wives when they ran, that their blood is on my hands too." "Is it?" "I didn't know." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "God is my witness, I didn't know what he was doing. I thought I was just finding runaways, thought I was helping him bring his wives home. I didn't know he was killing them. But you know now." "Yeah, I know now." Jack looked at the pouch of gold in his hand. Then he looked up at Caleb. "I'll tell him I lost her trail in the blizzard, that she probably died somewhere out in the wilderness. Maybe that'll buy you some time." "How much time?" 3 days, maybe 4. That's when he'll stop believing me and come himself." "And you?" "I'm done working for Marcus Dalton." Jack pocketed the gold. "This medicine will keep my wife alive for a few months. After that, I'll figure something out. But I won't help that monster anymore." He mounted his horse, started to ride away. Then he stopped and looked back. "There's something else you should know. Something I heard him say to his deputy once, when he thought no one was listening." "What?" "He said he's done it 3 times. Married Apache women to get access to their family land. Then after the baby comes, if it's a girl, he makes sure neither of them survive the birth. If it's a boy, he keeps the child and gets rid of the mother. Either way, as a widower with a claim to Apache land, he can petition the government for ownership, and the government always gives it to him." Caleb felt his blood turn to ice. 3 times. "That I know of. Could be more." Jack's face was grim, and Nalnish was wife number 4. After Jack left, Caleb stood on the porch for a long time, watching the trees, thinking, planning. 3 wives dead, maybe more. Children killed for being born the wrong gender. All of it hidden behind a veneer of respectability and legal authority. And somewhere out there, the man responsible was preparing to come claim his next victim. Not if Caleb had anything to say about it. He went back inside, found Nalnish sitting by the fire, arms wrapped around her belly. She was shaking, but not from cold, from memory, from fear. Willa sat beside her, holding her hand. Jessie had brought a cup of water. Even Mercy seemed to sense something was wrong. She'd abandoned her rag doll and climbed into Nalnish's lap, patting the woman's face with small, gentle hands. "Sad?" Mercy asked. "Yes," Nalnish whispered. "Very sad." "Papa fix it," Mercy announced with the absolute certainty of a 4-year-old. "Papa fix everything." Caleb wished he had that kind of faith, but looking at Nalnish's tear-stained face, at the way she held his youngest daughter like she was something precious and fragile, he knew he'd do whatever it took to make Mercy's words true. "He's coming," Nalnish said. Not a question. A statement. 3 days, Jack said. Maybe 4. Then I go. Before he come. I bring you trouble. Danger. She tried to stand, but Caleb stopped her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. She flinched at the contact, but didn't pull away. "You're not bringing us anything except a chance to do what's right," he said. "Now sit down before you fall down. You no understand. He kill before. He kill again. He tries. He'll have to go through me first. Nalnish looked up at him. For the first time since that initial night she met his eyes directly, held his gaze. "Why you help me? You know me." Caleb thought about Rebecca's letter, about Willa's prayer, about the 4 months he'd spent as a walking ghost, going through the motions of living without actually being alive. "Don't need to know you," he said. "You're a mother protecting her child. That's enough." She studied his face, searching for something. Whatever it was, she seemed to find it. "You good man?" "I'm just a man trying to keep a promise to someone I lost." "You wife?" He nodded. "She want you be alone?" "No. But wanting and having are different things." Nalnish was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "In my tongue, we say heart closed is heart dying." Caleb looked at her. Really looked at her. Saw past the bruises fading on her jawline. Saw past the fear that still lingered in her eyes. Saw a woman who'd been beaten down but refused to stay down. Who'd walked 3 days through a blizzard to save her unborn child. Who was still fighting even when everything said she should give up. "Your English is getting better," he said. A small smile touched her lips. "You good teacher." That night, after the children were asleep, Caleb and Nalnish sat by the dying fire. She was teaching him words in Apache. He was teaching her more English. It was slow work, frustrating work, but there was something peaceful about it too. Like they were building a bridge between their worlds 1 word at a time. "Family," she said, pointing to the sleeping children. "Your family." "Yeah. Beautiful family." She touched her belly. "I want this for my baby. Safe, warm, love. You'll have it." "How you know?" "Because I'm gonna make damn sure of it." She smiled then. A real smile that reached her eyes. And for just a moment, Caleb saw what she might have looked like before Marcus Dalton got his hands on her. Before fear became her constant companion. Before every day was a fight just to survive. He saw her as she should have been, as she deserved to be. And something in his chest, something he'd thought died with Rebecca, stirred back to life. Not love, not yet, but something close to it. Something like hope. Outside, the last of the winter storm finally broke. Stars emerged in a clear black sky. And 3 days away, counting down like a death sentence, Marcus Dalton was preparing to come claim what he believed was his. But he didn't know about Caleb Brennan yet. Didn't know about a mountain man with a beard like a prophet and hands like hammers who'd made a promise to a dead woman and a dying one. Who'd decided that sometimes the only way to honor the past was to fight like hell for the future. 3 days. Then the reckoning would come. On the 3rd morning, Caleb was teaching Willa to shoot. His daughter stood in the yard, her small frame dwarfed by Rebecca's old rifle. The weapon was too big for her, too heavy, but she held it with the kind of determination that reminded Caleb exactly whose child she was. Stubborn, fierce, unbreakable. "Breathe in," Caleb said quietly. "Let half out. Hold. Then squeeze." The rifle cracked. The tin can 20 yards away jumped and spun. Not a perfect hit, but close enough. Willa lowered the weapon, her arms shaking. "Did I do good, Papa?" "You did fine." He took the rifle from her, ejected the spent cartridge. "But I pray to God you never have to use that skill. If Mr. Dalton comes, I will. If Mr. Dalton comes, you take your brother and sister to the root cellar, and you stay there until I come get you. Understand?" Willa's gray eyes met his. "And if you don't come?" "I'll come." "But if you don't?" Caleb knelt down so he was eye level with his 8-year-old daughter. Saw the wisdom there that didn't belong to someone so young. The kind of wisdom that came from losing a mother too soon and growing up too fast. "If I don't come," he said carefully, "you take Jessie and Mercy and you run to the Hendersons. They'll look after you. I won't leave Miss Anya. Lou, this ain't your fight." "Yes, it is." Her jaw set in that way he knew too well. "She's family now. Mama said we protect family. Always." Before Caleb could argue, Naalnish appeared from the cabin. She moved differently now, after 3 days of food and rest and safety. Still cautious, still watching, but with more confidence, more strength. She'd found some of Rebecca's old clothes, a simple dress that fit her growing belly, and braided her black hair in the intricate Apache way. She looked, Caleb thought, like someone starting to believe she might actually survive. And then she did something that surprised him. She met his eyes, held his gaze steady and direct. In Apache custom, women didn't look strange men in the eye. But Caleb wasn't a stranger anymore. He'd saved her life, taken her into his home, protected her from the monster who'd hunted her. That earned him the right to be seen. "You teach daughter fight," she said. It wasn't a question. "I teach her survive." "Good." Naalnish nodded approvingly. "In my people, girls learn hunt, learn track, learn fight." She looked at Willa. "I teach you Apache way?" Willa's face lit up. "Really? Come. I show you how to move quiet, how to hide, how to see without being seen." While Naalnish took Willa into the trees, Caleb heard hoofbeats approaching. His hand went to his rifle instinctively. But this wasn't Jack Lydell. This was someone older. Someone who moved with the careful deliberation of a man who'd seen too many winters and survived them all. Ezra Holcomb rode into the yard on a paint horse that looked as old and weathered as he did. Ezra was somewhere past 60, with a beard that reached his chest and buckskin clothes that had more patches than original material. He'd been a hermit for as long as Caleb had known him, living alone in the high country, emerging only when he needed supplies or when trouble needed sorting. Caleb raised his rifle. "Ezra, don't recall inviting you. Don't recall needing an invitation." Ezra dismounted slowly, his movements stiff with age. "Heard through the grapevine that Dalton's hunting an Apache woman. Heard you might be fool enough to harbor her. Grapevine talks too much. She here?" The silence stretched. In the trees, Caleb could hear Naalnish teaching Willa something in Apache. A song, maybe, or a prayer. The sound was haunting and beautiful. "What's it to you?" Caleb finally asked. Ezra's weathered face went hard. "Everything. That woman out there? She Apache?" "White Mountain Apache. What of it?" "My wife was White Mountain Apache." Ezra said it like a challenge, like he was daring Caleb to make something of it. "Name was Red Sky Walker. Most beautiful woman I ever laid eyes on. Married her in 1867. Had 8 good years before Dalton's men killed her." Caleb lowered his rifle. "I didn't know." "Nobody knows. Nobody asks." Ezra spat into the dirt. "They called it an accident, a mistake during a raid. But I was there. I saw what happened. Saw one of Dalton's deputies put a bullet in her back while she was running away. Saw them laugh about it after." Jesus Christ. "I've been tracking Dalton for 2 years, gathering evidence, building a case." Ezra reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a leather folder. "Got proof he killed those 3 Apache wives. Got testimony from folks who saw things. Got a doctor willing to admit he falsified death certificates. But I need time to get it all to federal marshals who aren't on Dalton's payroll." "How much time?" 4 days. Maybe 5. Jack Lydell said Dalton's coming in 3. "Then we make him wait." Ezra's eyes gleamed. "Where's the woman?" Naalnish emerged from the trees with Willa. She froze when she saw Ezra. Her hand went to her belly protectively. Every line of her body screamed danger, ready to run. Ezra spoke in fluent Apache. The words flowed like water, natural and easy. Naalnish's eyes went wide. She answered, her voice uncertain at first, then stronger. Back and forth they went, a rapid conversation that left Caleb and Willa standing there like spectators at a play they couldn't understand. Finally Naalnish turned to Caleb. Her eyes were wet with tears, but she was smiling. "He speak my tongue," she said in English. "He know my people. He say he help." "What did you tell her?" Caleb asked Ezra. Told her my wife's name. Told her how she died. Told her I've been waiting 2 years for a chance to make Dalton pay for what he's done. Ezra's voice went soft. Told her she's not alone anymore. Nalnish crossed to Ezra. Did something formal, touching her forehead and then her heart. Apache greeting, Caleb guessed. Ezra returned it with the ease of long practice. Thank you, Nalnish said. For you, wife. For my sisters. For me. Don't thank me yet. Ezra looked at Caleb. We got work to do. That man's coming and he's bringing hell with him. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Ezra knew defense better than Caleb did, had served as an Army scout during the Apache Wars, and knew how to read terrain, how to position men, how to turn a simple ranch cabin into a fortress. They moved furniture, creating firing positions by the windows, dug trenches where they could, stacked supplies in the root cellar in case of siege. Jessie helped carry water. Even Mercy contributed, her 4-year-old energy endless as she ran back and forth with whatever small items she could carry. Nalnish worked alongside them despite Caleb's protests. She was 7 months pregnant, moving slower now but determined to help. She showed them Apache defensive tactics, how to use the land, how to create false trails, how to set up early warning signals with rocks and sticks arranged in patterns that looked natural to the untrained eye. As the sun began to set, painting the Arizona sky in shades of orange and purple, they gathered around the fire for a meal. Simple food, beans and cornbread. But there was something almost sacred about breaking bread together. 4 adults, 3 children, and 1 unborn baby. A family forged not by blood, but by choice. That's when Nalnish gasped. At first, Caleb thought she'd burned herself on the pot. Then he saw her face go white. Saw her double over, hands clutching her belly. "What's wrong?" Willa was on her feet instantly. Nalnish said something in Apache. Ezra translated, his face grim. "Her water just broke. The baby's coming." "Now?" Caleb felt his stomach drop. "She's not due for another 2 months. Tell that to the baby." Ezra was already moving, grabbing blankets. "Lou, get water boiling. Jessie, I need every clean cloth in this house. Move, boy." The children scattered. Caleb stood frozen, his mind racing. He'd helped birth calves, foals, even a litter of puppies once, but never a human child, never something this fragile, this precious, this terrifying. Nalnish cried out, a sound of pure agony that cut through Caleb like a knife. She tried to stand, made it maybe 3 feet before her legs gave out. Caleb caught her before she hit the floor. "I got you," he said. "I got you. Baby coming wrong." She was speaking English and Apache mixed together, words tumbling over each other in her panic. "Feel wrong. Something wrong." Ezra checked, his weathered hands surprisingly gentle. His face darkened. "She's right. Baby's breech. Feet first instead of head. Can you turn it?" "I can try. But it's gonna hurt her. Bad." Outside, the sound of horses reached them. Multiple riders, moving fast. "No. Not now. Not like this." Caleb looked at Ezra. The old man's face was set. "You got to choose, Caleb. Stay with her or defend the door. Can't do both." It was the hardest decision of Caleb's life. Stay with Nalnish while she fought for her life and her babies, or face down whatever was coming through that door. Protection or comfort, warrior or healer. "Lou," he called. His daughter appeared, her young face already streaked with tears. She knew, somehow, had that same gift Rebecca always had for reading impossible situations. "I'm staying with her, Papa. You go. Lou, you're 8 years old, and she's dying." Willa's voice didn't waver. "You taught me to shoot. Ezra can teach me the rest. I can do this, Papa. I have to do this." Caleb looked at his daughter, at the determination burning in those gray eyes, at the strength she shouldn't have had to develop so young. He thought about Rebecca, about what she would say in this moment. and he knew, with absolute certainty, what she would tell him to do. "Ezra, you stay with them. Help Lou." "And you?" Caleb grabbed his rifle. "Check the load. I'll handle whoever's at that door." He stepped onto the porch just as 6 riders materialized from the growing darkness. At their center, on a fine chestnut horse, sat a man Caleb had never seen but recognized instantly. Slicked back hair, expensive clothes, clean-shaven face with features that would have been handsome if not for the cruelty twisting them. Marcus Dalton had arrived. Behind him rode 5 hired guns and a man wearing a federal marshal's badge. Deputy Marshal Cole, Caleb guessed. Looking uncomfortable with his company but official nonetheless. "Mr. Brennan?" Marcus's voice was smooth as silk. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." From inside the cabin came a scream. Nalnish, her voice raw with pain and fear. Marcus smiled. "Ah, right on time." Caleb raised his rifle, pointing it directly at the Indian agent's chest. "Get off my land. Now, let's not be hasty." Marcus gestured to the deputy marshal. "This is Deputy Cole. He's here to witness that everything is done legally and proper. My wife, you see, stole property from me. Federal property. I'm within my rights to reclaim her." "She ain't property, and she sure as hell ain't your wife." "The law says different." Marcus pulled papers from his coat. "Marriage certificate, signed and witnessed, and a warrant for her arrest on charges of theft." Deputy Cole shifted in his saddle, looking like he wanted to be anywhere but here. "Mr. Brennan, I don't like this any more than you do, but the law is clear. If you're harboring a fugitive—" "Harboring?" Caleb's voice went cold. "I'm protecting a woman you people were supposed to protect. Where were you when he was beating her? Where was the law when she had to run for her life?" Another scream from inside, from this one worse, followed by Willa's voice, young but steady. "It's okay, Miss Anya. You're doing good. Just breathe." Marcus's smile widened. "Sounds like she's having some difficulty. Perhaps I should go help my wife. You take one step toward that door and I'll put a bullet through your skull." The hired guns reached for their weapons. Caleb didn't move, didn't flinch, just kept his rifle trained on Marcus. "Gentlemen, please." Deputy Cole held up his hands. "This doesn't have to end in bloodshed." "Yes, it does." Ezra's voice came from the cabin doorway. The old hermit stepped out, his own rifle in hand. "Been waiting 2 years for this, Cole. You want to serve that warrant, you're going to have to go through both of us." "Holcomb?" Deputy Cole looked genuinely surprised. "Thought you were dead." "Disappointed?" "Actually, no. Always respected you, Ezra. But you're putting me in an impossible position here." "Then let me make it simple." Ezra's voice carried across the yard. "Marcus Dalton is a murderer. He's killed 3 Apache women that I know of, maybe more. I got proof. Testimonies, documents, everything a court would need." "That's slander," Marcus snarled. "It's truth, and you know it." Deputy Cole looked between them. Uncertainty flickered across his face. "If you have evidence, why haven't you brought it forward?" "Because half the marshals in this territory are on his payroll, but I found some honest ones, sent them everything I got. They're on their way here right now." "He's lying," Marcus snapped. "And even if he's not, it doesn't matter. I have the law on my side." "You had the law." A new voice cut through the tension. "Not anymore." Jack Liddell rode into the yard, his horse lathered with sweat. He was holding papers of his own, official papers with federal seals. "Deputy Cole, I just rode from Fort Apache. The marshals are 3 hours behind me. They have arrest warrants, plural." Jack's eyes found Marcus. "For murder." The color drained from Marcus's face. "You lying half-breed. They found the bodies, all 3 of them, buried on your property." Jack's voice shook with barely contained rage. "And I told them everything. Every woman I tracked for you, every lie you had me tell. It's over, Dalton." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus made his choice. He pulled a pistol and fired. Not at Caleb or Ezra, at Deputy Cole. The deputy went down, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his shirt. Marcus's hired guns, realizing they'd just witnessed attempted murder of a federal marshal, panicked. Two wheeled their horses and fled. The others hesitated, caught between loyalty and self-preservation. Marcus fired again, this time at the cabin. The bullet splintered wood. From inside came more screams. Not pain this time, terror. Caleb didn't think, didn't plan, just moved. He charged down the porch steps, using the chaos to close distance, slammed into Marcus's horse. The animal reared. Marcus fell, hit the ground hard. Gunfire erupted. Ezra was shooting from the porch. Jack had his own weapon out. The three remaining hired guns returned fire. One of them fell. Another ran. But Caleb only had eyes for Marcus. He dragged the man up by his collar, his massive fist drawn back. One punch. That's all it would take. One punch to cave in that smiling face forever. "Papa, no!" Willa's voice cut through the rage. Caleb looked up. His daughter stood in the doorway, her hands and dress covered in blood. Behind her, Ezra had gone back inside. "The baby," Willa said. "Papa, the baby's coming. Please." Caleb looked down at Marcus, at the fear finally showing in those cruel eyes. He wanted so badly to finish this, to end the threat once and for all. But Willa needed him. Nilnish needed him. And somewhere in that cabin, a new life was fighting to be born. He dropped Marcus like garbage. "If I see your face again, there won't be any stopping me." Then he ran for the cabin, leaving Jack to watch the Indian agent who'd terrorized too many women for too long. Inside, Nilnish was barely conscious, her face gray with pain and blood loss. Ezra worked with quick, practiced movements, and Willa, his 8-year-old daughter, held Nilnish's hand and whispered encouragement like she'd been doing this her whole life. "I need you here," Ezra said without looking up. "Hold her legs. Baby's almost turned." Caleb took position, looked down at Nilnish's face. Her eyes found his. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. Me too." He gripped her hand. "But we're going to get through this. You hear me? We're going to get through this together." One more push. One more moment of agony. Then a sound unlike anything Caleb had ever heard. A baby's cry, small and furious and absolutely perfect. "It's a girl," Ezra said, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "Perfect and healthy and absolutely furious." He cleaned the baby quickly, wrapped her in a blanket, placed her in Nilnish's arms. Nilnish looked down at her daughter. Tears streamed down her face. Not from pain anymore, from joy so profound it transcended language. "Kai," she whispered. "I name her Kai. It mean willow tree. Bend, but not break." Outside, the sound of many horses approached. Real federal marshals this time, with Jack Liddell leading them in. They'd take Marcus away, lock him up, see justice done. But in the cabin, none of that mattered. Only this moment. This perfect, impossible moment. A woman who'd survived death holding the child she'd fought so hard to save. A man who'd thought he'd lost everything finding purpose again. Children who'd learned that sometimes family means fighting for strangers until they become something more. Willa looked at her father. "We did it, Papa." "Yeah, Lou, we did." He pulled his daughter close. "Your mama would be so proud of you." "She'd be proud of all of us." And looking around the cabin at the faces of people who'd been strangers just days ago but were family now, Caleb knew it was true. Marcus Dalton wasn't done. That's what Jack Liddell told them 3 days after the marshals took the Indian agent away in chains. 3 days of thinking it was over, 3 days of Nilnish recovering, of baby Kai nursing and crying and sleeping in that perfect rhythm newborns have. 3 days of Caleb starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd actually won. Jack rode up at dawn, his horse half dead from being pushed too hard. He dismounted before the animal even stopped, stumbled toward the porch where Caleb was already reaching for his rifle. He escaped. 2 words. That's all it took to shatter the fragile peace they'd built. What do you mean, escaped? Caleb's voice was dangerously quiet. He was in federal custody. Was being the word that matters. Jack was breathing hard, sweat and dust covering his face. They were transporting him to the territorial prison in Yuma. Ambushed on the road, 4 marshals dead, Dalton and 6 other prisoners gone. Inside the cabin, Caleb heard Nyalnish singing to Kai, that Apache lullaby she'd been teaching the children. The sound was beautiful and fragile, and everything worth protecting in this world. How long ago? Yesterday morning. I rode all night to get here. Jack looked back at the trail like he expected to see Marcus emerging from the trees. He's coming, Mr. Brennan. Man like that, ego like that, he won't let this stand. Won't let a mountain man and an Apache woman make a fool of him. Let him come. You don't understand. He's got nothing to lose now. He's a wanted man, career's over, reputation's destroyed. All he's got left is rage and the need to settle scores. Ezra appeared from the barn, his ancient rifle slung over one shoulder. The old hermit had stayed on after the shooting, claiming he wanted to make sure Nyalnish and the baby were safe. But Caleb suspected the truth was simpler. Ezra was lonely, had been lonely for 2 years since his Apache wife died, and having people around again, having purpose again, that was a hard thing to walk away from. How many men does he have? Ezra asked. At least 6 from the prison break. Could be more by now. Could have picked up hired guns who don't care about federal warrants. Jack's hands were shaking. I came because I owe you. Because I owe her. But I'm not a fighter, Mr. Brennan. And what's coming, that's going to require fighting. Caleb looked at the cabin, at the smoke rising from the chimney, at the window where he could see Willa helping Mercy braid corn husk dolls, at everything he'd lost once and refused to lose again. Then we get help. From where? Town's 20 miles away. Most folks there are either scared of Dalton or worked for him at some point. I wasn't thinking about town folks. Caleb turned to Ezra. You still have contacts with the Apache? Ezra's weathered face split into a grin. I might know a few people. Can you get word to Nalnish's family? Tell them she needs help? Her brother Tarak's a war leader. 20 warriors easy, maybe more. Ezra was already heading for his horse. But it'll take time. 2 days to reach them. Another 2 for them to get here. We don't have 4 days. Then I better ride fast. After Ezra left, Caleb sat down with Nalnish. She was in the rocking chair Rebecca used to love, Kai sleeping against her chest. The sight of her there, in that chair, holding that baby, it should have felt wrong, like a betrayal of Rebecca's memory. But it didn't. It felt right in a way Caleb couldn't quite explain and wasn't sure he wanted to. He's coming, she said. Not a question. She'd heard everything from the bedroom. Yeah. I bring this to you. I bring death to you house. You didn't bring anything except a chance for us to prove we're worth something. Caleb knelt beside the chair. I lost my wife to a fever I couldn't fight, couldn't do a damn thing except watch her slip away. But this I can fight. This I can do something about. Nalnish looked down at Kai, at that perfect small face, those tiny fingers that gripped so tight to her mother's thumb. If he come, he try to take her, kill me, over my dead body. That what I'm afraid of. She met his eyes. You good man, Caleb Brennan. Too good to die for woman you know 3 days. I've known you longer than that. He touched her hand, gentle as he could manage with his rough fingers. Known you since you showed up half frozen in my barn, since you held my daughter while she cried, since you taught my son your language and braided my youngest's hair. Time doesn't make family. Choice does. A tear rolled down her cheek. In Apache way, when someone save your life you owe them. But you already saved mine. What more I can give? Your trust, your courage, your willingness to stand with us when the storm comes." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something in Apache. The words were soft but carried weight. "Ceremony. Promise." "What does that mean?" "It mean, where you stand, I stand. Where you fall, I fall. We are one people now." She looked at him. "Is Apache way of saying family." That night they prepared for war. Caleb and Jack reinforced the cabin's defenses, moved furniture to create better firing positions, stacked firewood against the walls for extra protection, dug a deeper trench around the perimeter. Every man who'd ever served in the Army knew the basics of defense, and Caleb had served 4 hard years in a war that taught lessons you never forgot. Willa helped too, despite Caleb's protests. His 8-year-old daughter had grown a decade in the past week, had seen things no child should see, done things no child should have to do, but she'd done them with a courage that humbled him. "Papa," she said as they were stacking the last of the sandbags by the windows, "if something happens to you, what do you want me to do?" "Nothing's going to happen to me. But if it does—" Caleb stopped working, looked at his daughter, saw Rebecca's eyes staring back at him, saw that same determination, that same refusal to accept comfortable lies. "If it does," he said slowly, "you take Jesse and Mercy and you run. Don't look back. Don't try to be a hero. Just run. And Miss Anya? And Kai? I'll make sure they get out with you. You can't promise that." "No, I can't." He pulled her close. "But I can promise I'll die trying." She hugged him fierce and hard. "Mama's letter said you had to keep living. She made you promise." "I know." "Then keep that promise, Papa. Please." The next morning brought riders, but not the ones they expected. Caleb was on the porch, rifle ready, when he heard horses approaching. Multiple riders, moving at a steady pace. His finger tightened on the trigger. Then he saw the lead rider and his breath caught. Doc Samuel Turner, the elderly physician from Payson Settlement, 20 miles south. The one who'd admitted to falsifying death certificates for Marcus Dalton. The one who'd been so consumed with guilt he'd testified to the marshals despite knowing it might cost him everything. Behind Doc Turner rode 6 more people. Mrs. Clara Henderson, the widow who lived 5 miles north, Pastor William Grant from the Settlement Church, the blacksmith and his 2 grown sons, even young Deputy Cole, his arm in a sling from where Marcus had shot him, wearing his federal badge and riding despite obvious pain. They reined up in the yard. Doc Turner dismounted with the stiff movements of a man past 70. "Heard through the grapevine that Dalton escaped," the doctor said without preamble. "Figured you might need some help." "This ain't your fight, Doc." "The hell it isn't." Doc Turner's face was hard. "That man made me complicit in murder. Made me sign papers saying women died natural when I knew damn well they didn't. I kept quiet because I was scared. Because I was weak. But I'm done being weak." Pastor Grant stepped forward. "The church stands with you, Mr. Brennan. What Dalton did, using the law as a weapon against the innocent, that goes against everything we believe." "Could get you killed," Caleb said. "We're all going to die eventually." The pastor's voice was calm. "Might as well die standing for something." Mrs. Henderson pushed through the men, carrying a basket of food. "I brought supplies, and I know how to shoot if it comes to that." "Ma'am, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." She looked at him with steel in her eyes. "My husband was Apache. Did you know that? Married him in 43. We had 30 good years before the fever took him. And I saw how folks treated us. How they looked at him. At me for choosing him. Marcus Dalton was one of those folks. So yeah, Mr. Brennan, this is my fight too." The blacksmith spoke up, his voice gruff. "We talked it over in town. Most folks are too scared to stand against Dalton. But some of us remember what it means to do right even when it's hard. That woman in there, she deserves a chance. That baby deserves a chance. So, here we are. Caleb looked at them. 8 people. Not fighters, most of them. Just ordinary folks who'd decided that sometimes ordinary wasn't enough. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Doc Turner headed for the cabin. Just show me the mother and child. Need to make sure they're recovering properly. Inside, Nal Nish sat with Kai while Willa and Mercy played nearby. When she saw the crowd of strangers filing in, her hand went to the knife she kept close. Old habits. Old fears. But then Mrs. Henderson crossed to her, knelt down, spoke in halting Apache, her pronunciation rough but sincere. Nal Nish's eyes went wide. She responded, her voice thick with emotion. "What did they say?" Caleb asked. "Mrs. Henderson told her she's not alone," Willa translated. She'd been learning Apache from Nal Nish, picking it up with the ease of youth. "And Miss Anya said she knows, that she's never felt less alone in her whole life." That afternoon they drilled. Not military precision, nothing like that, but basic defensive positions. Who would cover which window? Who would reload? Who would tend the wounded? Deputy Cole, despite his injury, coordinated it all with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "We're not trying to win," he explained. "We're trying to survive until the real help gets here. Ezra's Apache warriors, or more marshals, or whoever shows up first. Our job is to hold this position and keep everyone alive." "What if help doesn't come?" Jesse asked. Caleb's 6-year-old son was trying so hard to be brave, to be useful. It broke Caleb's heart. "Then we fight anyway," Deputy Cole said simply, "because that's what good people do when bad people come calling." As sunset painted the sky blood red, Jack rode back from his scouting position. His face was grim. "They're coming. Maybe 12 men. Heavily armed. They'll be here by full dark." "How long?" 2 hours. Maybe less." Caleb looked around the cabin. At his children, trying to be brave. At Nal Nish, holding Kai close. At the townspeople who'd risked everything to stand with strangers. At Doc Turner and Mrs. Henderson and Pastor Grant and all the others who'd decided that conscience mattered more than safety. This was his family now. All of them. Not just blood. Not just the ones he'd been born to or married into, but the ones who'd chosen to stand beside him when the darkness came. "All right, then." Caleb's voice was steady. "Let's give them hell." As night fell, they took their positions. Children in the root cellar with Mrs. Henderson standing guard, Doc Turner ready with his medical supplies, the men at the windows with rifles loaded and hands steady, Deputy Cole coordinating from his position by the front door, and Nal Nish, despite everyone's protests, holding her own rifle with Kai sleeping in a sling against her chest. "I know hide," she said when Caleb tried to argue. "This my fight most of all." She was right. He knew she was right. But the thought of her in danger, of that baby in danger, it made his chest tight with fear. "Stay low then. And if things go bad, I know. Take Kai and run." She touched his face, her fingers gentle on his bearded cheek. "But I no leave you to die alone." Outside in the distance they heard it. Hoofbeats, growing closer. Marcus Dalton was coming home to finish what he'd started. And this time there would be no federal marshals to stop him. No law to hide behind. Just brutal, final violence and the question of who would still be standing when the smoke cleared. Caleb checked his rifle one last time. Thought about Rebecca. About the promise he'd made to keep living, to keep fighting for what was right. "Well, Becca," he whispered to the ghost of his first wife, "I'm keeping that promise. Hope you're proud." Then the night exploded with gunfire, and the battle for Brennan Ranch began. The first shot shattered a window but hit nothing but wood. Marcus Dalton had learned at least one thing in his years of corruption. He announced himself, made a show of it, wanted them to know death was coming and there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Brennan!" His voice carried across the dark yard. "Send out my wife and the bastard child, or I burn you all." Caleb stood away from the window, pressed against the wall. The smart position. the position that kept you alive. Beside him, Jack Liddell held his rifle with hands that shook only slightly. Across the room, Pastor Grant and the blacksmith's sons waited in tense silence. "Your move," Jack whispered. Caleb didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because stepping into that doorway, making himself a target, that was either the bravest thing he'd ever do or the stupidest. And he wouldn't know which until it was over. He stepped onto the porch. 12 riders formed a semicircle around the cabin, torches blazing, faces shadowed but intent clear. Marcus sat at the center on that same chestnut horse, looking like something out of a nightmare. His expensive clothes were torn now, prison dirt still clinging to him. His face was gaunt, eyes wild. This wasn't the smooth-talking Indian agent anymore. This was something rawer, more desperate, more dangerous. "There you are." Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The mountain man with the hero complex. How's that working out for you? Leave now, and nobody else has to die." "Nobody else?" Marcus laughed. "4 federal marshals are already dead because of you, because you couldn't mind your own business. Those men died because you murdered them trying to escape justice." "Justice." Marcus spat the word like poison. "You want to talk about justice? She stole from me. My property, my papers. That's theft, federal theft. She stole proof of your murders. That makes it evidence, not theft." Behind Marcus, his men shifted. Some of them didn't look comfortable with this conversation. Good. Divided allies were weak allies. "I gave her everything," Marcus continued. "A home, a name, respectability. And how does she repay me? Runs to the first white fool willing to believe an Indian's lies." They weren't lies. Doc Turner appeared in the doorway behind Caleb, his elderly frame somehow dignified despite the rifle in his hands. "I falsified those death certificates, Dalton. I know what you did, and I'm ready to testify to it in any court that'll hear me." Marcus's face twisted. "You drunk old fool. I should have let you rot." "Probably. But you didn't. You needed someone desperate enough to sign anything. Someone with just enough medical knowledge to make it look legitimate." Doc Turner's voice was steady. "Well, congratulations. You found him. And now he's going to see you hang for it." Brave words from a dying old man. "I'm 73 years old. Been dying for at least a decade now." Doc Turner smiled. "But you? You're what? 38? 40? You got a lot of living left to lose. Makes you the coward, not me." Caleb saw the rage building in Marcus's face, saw the moment the man stopped thinking and started reacting. He dove back through the door just as Marcus fired. The bullet took Doc Turner in the chest. The old physician stumbled backward. Caleb caught him, lowered him to the floor. Blood spread across the doc's shirt, dark and fast. "Damn," Doc Turner wheezed. "That hurts worse than I expected." "Don't talk. Save your strength." "For what?" "We both know I'm done." The old man gripped Caleb's arm. "Make it count. Make my death count for something." Then the world exploded into violence. Marcus's men charged, some on horseback, some on foot. Gunfire lit up the night like lightning, windows shattered, wood splintered, the air filled with smoke and the smell of black powder and the screams of men learning what bullets actually did to human flesh. Pastor Grant fired from his window. Methodical, calm, like he was doing the Lord's work, and maybe he was. One of Marcus's men went down, then another. The blacksmith's sons worked as a team, one shooting while the other reloaded. Professional, efficient. Their father had taught them well. Jack Liddell was at the north window, his shots careful and precise. Every bullet had a target. Every target went down or scrambled for cover. But there were too many of them. 12 against 8, and 3 of the 8 were already wounded or old or both. The math didn't work, didn't. "They're flanking!" Deputy Cole shouted. "East side!" Caleb ran to that window, saw 3 men trying to circle around to the barn. If they got in there, if they set fire to it, the flames would spread to the cabin. They'd be smoked out, picked off one by one. He fired. Once, twice. The first man went down. The second dove for cover. The third made it to the barn door. "No, you don't." Nalnish appeared beside him, Kai still strapped to her chest, a bow in her hands, traditional Apache weapon. She drew and released in one fluid motion. The arrow took the third man in the thigh. He screamed, fell, didn't get up. "You shouldn't be here," Caleb said. "Then where should I be?" She knocked another arrow. "This is my home, my family. I fight for it." In the root cellar below, they could hear the children. Willa singing to Jessie and Mercy, trying to keep them calm, trying to make them believe everything would be all right, even though gunfire rattled the walls and men were dying outside. Mrs. Henderson was down there too, her ancient shotgun loaded and ready. If anyone made it past the men, if anyone tried to harm those children, they'd learn that age didn't make you weak. Sometimes it just made you more dangerous because you had less to lose. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Time did strange things in combat, stretched and compressed, made seconds into eternities and eternities into heartbeats. 2 more of Marcus's men went down, but the blacksmith's youngest son took a bullet to the arm. Pastor Grant's window shattered, showering him with glass. Jack Liddell was hit in the side but kept fighting, his shirt dark with blood. "We can't hold," Deputy Cole said. His voice was calm despite the chaos. "We need to fall back, get everyone to the root cellar." "Then they win," Caleb fired again. Missed. Cursed. "Then they just burn us out." "Then we die fighting instead of cowering. But either way, we're not winning this." Caleb knew he was right, knew the math, knew how this ended, but he couldn't accept it, wouldn't accept it, not after everything they'd survived. Then he heard it, a sound that made his heart soar and Marcus's face go white. War cries, Apache war cries, coming from the ridges above. 20 warriors materialized from the darkness, not riding, running, moving with a speed and silence that spoke of generations of warfare. Tarak led them, Nalnish's brother, his face painted for battle. Behind him came Ezra Holcomb on his old paint horse, whooping like he was 30 years younger. They hit Marcus's remaining men like a storm, like divine retribution, like everything Marcus Dalton had feared during all those years of exploiting and murdering Apache women. The fight turned. Marcus's men, already shaken, broke completely. A few tried to run. The Apache warriors let them go. Others tried to fight. Those didn't fare as well. The rest threw down their weapons and surrendered. But Marcus himself wheeled his horse and charged for the barn, not trying to escape, trying to finish what he started. If he couldn't have Nyalnish, he'd make sure Caleb lost everything too. Caleb saw the torch in Marcus's hand, saw the intent, ran out the door despite every tactical bone in his body screaming that he was an idiot. The barn was already catching. Marcus had thrown the torch before Caleb could stop him. Flames licked up the dry wood. Inside, the horses screamed. "You lose," Marcus shrieked. "You lose everything." He pulled a knife, charged at Caleb with the desperate energy of a man who had nothing left but hatred. They collided, went down hard. The knife slashed at Caleb's face, but he jerked back, not fast enough. The blade opened a cut across his cheek. Blood poured hot and fast. Marcus was smaller but fueled by madness. The knife came at Caleb's throat. Caleb caught his wrist. They struggled, rolling in the dirt, the heat from the burning barn washing over them. "She was mine," Marcus screamed. "Mine by law, mine by right." "She was never yours." Caleb's voice was a growl. "She's a person, not property, and you're going to pay for forgetting that." With a surge of strength born from protecting everything he loved, Caleb wrenched the knife away, flipped their positions, ended up on top with the blade pressed against Marcus's throat. One push. That's all it would take. One push and Marcus Dalton would bleed out in the dirt like the rabid dog he was. "Do it," Marcus hissed. Blood flecked his lips. "Go on. Prove you're no better than me." Caleb wanted to. God, he wanted to end this threat forever, make sure Marcus could never hurt anyone else ever again. But then he heard Willa's voice from that first night, heard Rebecca's letter, Heard Nalnish's words about not becoming the thing you fought against. No. Caleb threw the knife aside. You don't get to make me a killer. You get to face justice, real justice, the kind that sticks. He dragged Marcus to his feet. Federal marshals were arriving now, real ones this time, the ones Ezra had summoned. They took custody of Marcus Dalton, this time with enough witnesses that escape wasn't possible. As they led him away, Marcus looked back at Nalnish. She stood on the porch, Kai in her arms, surrounded by Caleb's children and the Apache warriors and the townspeople who'd risked everything. You'll never be anything but a squaw, Marcus spat. Never be anything but... Nalnish cut him off. Spoke in clear, ringing English, each word carefully chosen. I am Nalnish of the White Mountain Apache. I am mother to Kai. I am sister to Tarak. I am friend to these people. She looked at Caleb. I am free, and you? You are nothing. You will be forgotten, but I will live. My daughter will live, and your evil dies with you. The marshals dragged Marcus away. His screaming faded into the night. Caleb turned to the barn. It was fully engulfed now. They'd saved the horses, but the structure itself was lost. He stared at the flames, feeling everything catch up to him. The fear, the exhaustion, the relief, the cost. Doc Turner was dead. The blacksmith's son was wounded. Jack Liddell might not make it through the night. They'd won, but the price was steep. Nalnish appeared beside him, Kai cooing softly in her arms. You save us, she said. We saved each other. She looked at him, at the blood streaming down his face from the knife wound, at the way his hands shook now that the fighting was over, at the grief already settling into his eyes for Doc Turner and whoever else they'd lost. You give me life, she said. You give my daughter future. How I repay this? You already did. You gave me a reason to keep my promise, to keep fighting, to keep living. He touched her face, gentle despite his rough hands. You gave me hope when I'd forgotten what it felt like. Tarak approached, his warriors behind him. He spoke in Apache. Naalnish translated. He say I am welcome to return to our people, that there is place for me and Kai among the tribe. Caleb felt his heart drop. Of course. Of course she would want to go back, to be with her own people, to raise her daughter in the traditions she'd been born to. He had no claim on her, no right to ask her to stay. You should go, he forced himself to say. Be with your family. Nalnish looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Willa, at Jessie and Mercy clustering around them, at the cabin that had become her sanctuary, at the community that had fought for her. I am with my family, she said quietly. Then she said something to Tarak. He listened, nodded slowly, responded in Apache. Back and forth they went, negotiating something. Finally Tarak turned to Caleb, spoke in careful English. My sister says her heart is here, with you, with your children, says she wishes to stay. He paused. But she is Apache, cannot forget her people, cannot abandon our ways. I wouldn't ask her to. Then we make compromise. 2 homes. She stay here in winter, come to our camp in summer. Children learn both ways, both peoples. Tarak held out his hand. This acceptable? Caleb took the warrior's hand, felt the strength there, the honor. More than acceptable. It's perfect. Around them the community began cleaning up, tending wounds, counting losses. Pastor Grant led a prayer for Doc Turner, that old drunk who'd found his courage at the end. Mrs. Henderson organized food. The blacksmith's sons carried their wounded brother inside. And through it all, baby Kai slept peacefully in her mother's arms, unaware of the violence that had surrounded her birth, unaware of the family that had fought so hard to give her a chance at life. As dawn broke over the Arizona territory, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Caleb Brennan stood on his porch with Nalnish beside him. his children clustered around, Apache warriors and white townspeople working together to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't the life he'd imagined, wasn't the family he'd been born to or the future he'd planned. But standing there, watching two worlds come together in the aftermath of violence, Caleb realized something profound. Sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming, the ones that arrived broken and bleeding and impossible, the ones you had to fight for with everything you had. He looked at Nalnish. She looked back. And in that moment, no words were needed. They'd survived. Together. And whatever came next, they'd face it the same way. As family. 3 months passed before they heard the news about Marcus Dalton's execution. Spring had come to the Mogollon Rim by then, painting the Arizona landscape in wildflowers and new growth. The barn had been rebuilt, bigger than before, with help from Tarak's warriors and the townspeople who'd stood with them that violent night. Doc Turner was buried on a hill overlooking the ranch, his grave marked by a simple cross and the words, "He found his courage." The blacksmith's son had recovered, though his arm would never be quite right. Jack Liddell had spent 2 weeks hovering between life and death from the bullet wound in his side. Ezra had pulled him through with Apache healing methods and sheer stubborn will. Once Jack could ride again, he'd taken his wife, healthy now thanks to the medicine Caleb's gold had bought, and moved to California to start fresh, away from the memories. He was splitting wood behind the cabin when Willa came running with the newspaper. "Papa, it's here. The article about the trial." Caleb set down the axe, wiped sweat from his bearded face. The scar Marcus's knife had left ran from his cheekbone to his jaw, a permanent reminder of that night. He'd grown to like it, made him look dangerous, made people think twice before starting trouble. "Read it to me." Willa unfolded the paper carefully. Her reading voice was clear and strong, so much like Rebecca's it sometimes hurt to hear. Marcus Dalton, former Indian agent and convicted murderer, was hanged at sunrise on June 15, 1879, at the Territorial Prison in Yuma. He was 38 years old. Dalton was found guilty of 3 counts of murder in the deaths of his previous Apache wives, as well as the murder of 4 federal marshals during his escape attempt. He showed no remorse at his execution. His last words were a curse upon those who testified against him. She looked up from the paper. "It's done, Papa. He's really gone." "Yeah, baby girl, he's really gone." Inside the cabin, Caleb could hear Naalnish singing, that Apache lullaby she'd taught them all. The sound drifted through the open windows along with the smell of bread baking and the laughter of children playing. "Does this mean Miss Anya will stop checking the doors at night?" Caleb smiled sadly. "Maybe, eventually. Healing takes time, Lou. Some wounds you carry forever. But she's happy now, right? I can tell she's happy." "I think so. Hope so." Willa was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that shouldn't have surprised him, but did anyway. Kids had a way of seeing straight through to truth. "You love her, don't you? The way you loved Mama?" Caleb looked at his daughter, at those knowing gray eyes that missed nothing. He could lie. Tell her it was too soon, that he was just being hospitable, that his heart still belonged entirely to Rebecca, but Willa deserved better than lies. "Yeah, Lou, I do. That make you angry?" "No." She smiled, and it was Rebecca's smile on her young face. "It makes me happy. Mama wanted you to love again. She told me so. Said your heart was too big to stay closed forever. Your mama was a wise woman." "She was." Willa folded the newspaper carefully. "But so is Miss Anya, and I think maybe God sent her to us for a reason." After Willa ran off to play, Caleb stood alone in the yard for a long time, watching the mountains, thinking about justice and mercy and the difference between the two. Marcus Dalton was dead, hanged for his crimes. Justice served. But was it enough? Did it balance the scales? Did it bring back the women he'd killed, the lives he'd destroyed? No. Justice never brought back the dead. It just stopped them from making more corpses. But maybe that was enough. Maybe that's all justice could ever be. That evening, after supper, Caleb found Nalnish on the porch. She sat in Rebecca's old rocking chair, nursing Kai while watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. 3 months old now, the baby was growing strong. Had her mother's dark eyes and what looked like it might be Caleb's stubborn chin. "Willa told you," Nalnish said without looking at him. "About Marcus." "She did." "You feel different, knowing he dead?" Caleb thought about it. "Yes and no. Glad he can't hurt anyone else. But it doesn't change what happened. Doesn't bring back Doc Turner or your sisters or my Rebecca." "No. Nothing bring them back." She shifted Kai to her other breast. "But maybe we honor them by living, by being happy, by making sure their deaths mean something." He sat down beside her. The evening was cool, pleasant. From inside came the sounds of his children doing their evening chores. Jessie feeding the chickens, Mercy singing to her rag doll, Willa reading by lamplight. Normal sounds, family sounds, the kind of sounds he'd thought died with Rebecca. "I want to ask you something," Caleb said. "But I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid you'll say no. Afraid you'll say yes. Afraid I'm moving too fast or not fast enough, or that I'm dishonoring Rebecca's memory by feeling what I feel." Nalnish smiled, that beautiful smile that transformed her whole face. "You want to ask if I marry you? How did you—" "I know. I see how you look at me, how you careful not to touch me but want to, how you protect not just because duty, because love." She touched his scarred face. "I feel same, but I not know if right, if too soon, if you heart ready." "I don't know if my heart's ready. Don't know if it'll ever be ready. Rebecca was everything to me." He took her hand. "But loving you doesn't mean I loved her less. Just means my heart grew, made room for more. In Apache way, we believe heart like fire. When you share flame, you not have less light, you have more." She was quiet for a moment. "But I have fear too. Fear you want me because I need saving, because I remind you of mission, not because of who I am. I wanted to save you at first, that's true, but that's not why I want you now." He chose his words carefully. "I want you because you're the strongest person I've ever met, because you walked 3 days through a blizzard to save your child, because you stood in that doorway with a bow and fought for this family like it was your own, because you make my children laugh again, because you make me want to wake up in the morning, because loving you doesn't feel like betraying Rebecca. It feels like honoring her, like keeping the promise I made to her to keep living." Tears streamed down Nalnish's face. "You sure? You sure you want Apache wife? Want people talk? Want children to have brown sister?" "I don't give a damn what people talk about. And my children already have a brown sister. Kai's as much mine as theirs." He knelt in front of the rocking chair. "Nalnish, I'm not asking you to replace Rebecca. I'm asking you to build something new with me, something that honors both our pasts but belongs to our future. Will you marry me?" She looked at him for a long time, at his scarred face and his rough hands and his eyes that had seen too much death but still chose hope anyway. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Caleb Brennan. I marry you." He kissed her then, their first real kiss, and it tasted like new beginnings and second chances and everything good that could come from ashes. The wedding happened a month later, in late July when the summer heat was at its peak. They held 2 ceremonies, the first at Pastor Grant's church in Payson Settlement. Nalnish wore a dress the townswomen had made for her, white cotton with intricate beading that honored both cultures. Caleb wore his best suit, the one he'd been married to Rebecca in because she would have wanted him to. Willa was their witness, standing solemn and proud as Pastor Grant spoke the words that bound them together in the eyes of God and the territory. Jessie and Mercy scattered wildflowers. Even little Kai cooed from Mrs. Henderson's arms, as if blessing the union. The church was packed. Word had spread about the Apache woman and the mountain man who'd stood against corruption. Some folks came out of curiosity, but most came because they believed in what Caleb and Nyalnish represented. Hope, second chances, the possibility that two broken people could build something beautiful together. After the Christian ceremony came the Apache one. Tarak and 20 warriors had ridden down from the mountains. They'd brought Red Skywalker's mother, ancient and wrinkled, who'd been Ezra Holcomb's mother-in-law before tragedy struck. She performed the traditional blessing, speaking in Apache, while Ezra translated for those who didn't understand. "Two peoples become one family," she said, her weathered hands raised to the sky. "Mountain man with beard like prophet, Apache woman with heart like warrior. Creator smiles on this joining, makes strong from broken, makes hope from sorrow." They exchanged gifts in the Apache way. Caleb gave Nyalnish a new rifle and a promise to protect her people as his own. Nyalnish gave Caleb an intricately woven blanket and a promise to honor his first wife's memory. Then Tarak stepped forward. He held a small leather pouch, worn with age. "This belonged to our mother," he said in careful English. "She wanted Nyalnish to have it when she married, but our mother died before that day came, so I give it now." Nyalnish opened the pouch with trembling fingers. Inside was a silver bracelet, delicate and beautiful, etched with symbols of family and endurance. "It's say, she who survives," Tarak explained. "Our mother was strong woman, like you, sister, like the woman this good man has chosen." The celebration lasted until dawn. Apache warriors and white settlers dancing together. Children of both peoples playing without understanding why their parents had been enemies. Music mixing, English songs and Apache chants blending into something new and strange and beautiful. And through it all, Caleb held Nyalnish's hand and thought about how far they'd both come. From that frozen night in the barn to this warm celebration under the stars. From strangers to family. From broken to whole. The months that followed were the happiest of Caleb's life. They established a rhythm. Winters at the ranch, where Nyalnish taught the children Apache ways while Caleb taught them ranching. Summers at Tarak's camp, where the children learned to track and hunt and speak the language of their adopted people. Back and forth they went, building bridges between two worlds. Kai grew strong and healthy. At 6 months, she was already trying to crawl, determined to keep up with her older siblings. Willa doted on her. Jessie was protective in that way big brothers are. Even Mercy, now 5, helped with the baby like she'd been born to it. And Nyalnish bloomed. That's the only word Caleb could think of. Bloomed like a flower that had been kept in darkness finally finding the sun. She smiled more, laughed more. The fear that had lived in her eyes gradually faded, replaced by something warmer, something like peace. In November, she told him she was pregnant again. "You sure?" Caleb asked, his hand on her still flat belly. "I am sure. This one yours. Full yours. Kai's mine too. I know. But this different. This baby comes from love, not fear. From choice, not force." She covered his hand with hers. "This baby is new beginning. For both of us." They told the children at dinner that night. The reactions were everything Caleb could have hoped for. "Another baby?" Willa's face lit up. "Can I name it?" "We'll see," Nyalnish said, smiling. "Is it going to be brown like Kai?" Jessie asked with the innocent directness of a 7-year-old. "Probably lighter, but still beautiful." "All babies beautiful," Mercy announced solemnly, "even ugly ones." In March of 1880, during a spring storm that reminded Caleb painfully of the night he'd found Nyalnish, their son was born. This birth was different. No violence outside, no fear, just Nyalnish in their bed, Caleb holding her hand, Ezra on standby just in case, and the children waiting breathlessly in the next room. The labor was shorter this time, easier. When the baby finally emerged, crying lustily, Caleb felt something break open in his chest. A different kind of love. Not better than what he felt for Willa, Jesse, and Mercy. Not deeper than what he felt for Kai. Just different. New. A boy, Ezra announced, cleaning the baby with practiced efficiency. Healthy and mad as hell about being born. Caleb took his son in his massive, scarred hands. The baby was tiny against his calloused fingers. Perfect. Whole. A mix of himself and Nalnish, both peoples visible in the child's features. "What do we name him?" he asked. Nalnish smiled, exhausted but radiant. "I was thinking Samuel, after the white doctor who helped deliver Kai, and Dakota for his Apache name. It mean friend to everyone." Samuel Dakota Brennan. Caleb tested the name, liked the way it sounded. "Yeah, that's perfect." They brought the children in to meet their new brother. Willa held him first, her young face solemn with responsibility. Then Jesse, who looked terrified he might break something. Mercy gave him her rag doll, declaring he needed protection. And Kai, now 8 months old, reached out to touch the baby's face with gentle, curious fingers. "This is your family, Samuel," Caleb said softly. "Different colors, different histories, but all one family, all one heart." As spring turned to summer, life settled into new patterns. They'd added onto the cabin again, creating more rooms for their growing family. The ranch prospered. Cattle prices were good. Water was plentiful. The Apache alliance meant peace with the tribes, which meant other ranchers sought Caleb's advice on negotiations. In June, a letter arrived. Official government seal. Caleb opened it with trepidation, expecting trouble. Instead, it was an offer. The Bureau of Indian Affairs wanted him to serve as the new Indian agent for the White Mountain Apache. The position Marcus Dalton had so thoroughly corrupted was empty. They needed someone the Apache trusted, someone who understood both peoples, someone with a reputation for integrity. The salary was significant, 3 times what the ranch brought in during a good year. Enough to ensure all 5 children could go to school, could have opportunities neither Caleb nor Nalnish had ever had. He showed the letter to Nalnish that evening. She read it slowly, her English reading skills much improved after months of Willa's patient teaching. "You want to take it?" she asked. "I don't know. It's good money, important work, but it means working with the government, means politics and bureaucracy and all the things that let men like Marcus slip through. Or it means changing system from inside, making sure no more Apache women die because corrupt man has power." She looked at him. "You could do good, Caleb, real good. Make my people's lives better. It's not just my decision, it's our decision. You'd be part of it too. Your voice, your understanding of the culture, that's what would make the difference." Nalnish was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled. "My mother, before she died, she had vision. She saw Apache woman standing between 2 worlds, speaking for people who had no voice. I thought that woman would be her. But maybe it's supposed to be me. Maybe everything that happened, all the pain, all the fear, maybe it was leading to this. So we do it? We do it. Together." That September, Caleb Brennan became Indian agent for the White Mountain Apache. Unlike Marcus Dalton, he didn't see the position as a path to wealth. He saw it as a responsibility, a sacred trust. He fought for fair rations, argued with his superiors about land rights, stood up to corrupt traders who tried to cheat the Apache, made enemies of powerful men who'd grown rich off suffering. But he also built schools, trained Apache youth in skills that would help them navigate the white world without losing their identity, created medical facilities, established trade relationships that benefited both peoples, and through it all, Nalnish was beside him, speaking to the Apache in their own language, helping translate not just words, but culture, teaching white officials about traditions they'd never bothered to understand. Becoming that bridge her mother had foreseen. The work was hard, the hours long. There were setbacks and frustrations and moments when they both wanted to quit. But they didn't, because they'd learned something important that frozen night in Caleb's barn. Sometimes the hardest thing, and the right thing were the same thing. And doing the right thing, even when it cost you everything, that's what separated people like Caleb and Nyalnish from people like Marcus Dalton. Years passed. The children grew. Willa became the first white woman to speak fluent Apache. She worked as a translator and teacher, helping Apache children learn to read and write in both languages. She never married, claimed she was too busy building bridges to worry about romance. But Caleb suspected she just never found anyone who matched her spirit. Jesse grew into a strong, quiet young man who split his time between ranching and serving as a liaison between Apache warriors and Army scouts. He had his father's build and his mother's diplomacy. People trusted him. Both peoples. Mercy surprised everyone by becoming a healer. She studied with Apache medicine women and white doctors both, combining traditions to create something new. Her patients didn't care about her mixed household. They just cared that she could cure what ailed them. Kai, the baby who'd been born in violence and nearly died before taking her first breath, grew into a fierce advocate for Apache rights. She traveled to Washington, spoke before Congress, fought tirelessly for her people. Had her mother's strength and her adopted father's stubborn refusal to accept injustice. And Samuel, the child of two peoples, became a lawyer, fought legal battles for Apache land rights, won more than he lost, carried both his parents' names with pride. In the spring of 1903, 25 years after that frozen night, Caleb and Nyalnish sat on their porch watching the sunset. They were older now. Caleb's beard was more gray than black. Nyalnish's hair showed silver streaks, but their hands were still clasped together, still strong. Around them, grandchildren played, a dozen of them, all different shades, all loved exactly the same. The sound of their laughter filled the evening air. "You ever regret it?" Caleb asked. "Marrying an old mountain man, raising his children as your own?" Nyalnish smiled, that same smile that had captured his heart all those years ago. "I regret nothing. You gave me life when I was dying, family when I was alone, purpose when I had lost all hope. What there to regret? I'm the one who should be grateful. You saved me, Anya, more than I saved you. Then we saved each other. That how it's supposed to work, yes? Two broken people make one whole family." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the Arizona sky in impossible colors. Somewhere in the house, someone was singing. Apache lullaby mixed with English hymn. Old ways and new ways blending together. "You think Rebecca would be proud?" Nyalnish asked quietly. She always remembered Caleb's first wife, always honored her memory. "I think she'd be amazed at what we built. 5 children raised, dozens of lives changed, 2 peoples learning to live together in peace." Caleb squeezed her hand. "But most of all, I think she'd be glad I kept my promise, kept living, kept fighting, kept believing in hope, even when hope seemed impossible." "What you think happened to us when we die? We see her again?" "Maybe. I like to think so. Like to think Rebecca's up there smiling, watching everything we accomplished, watching our children grow strong and proud. And what she say to me? The woman who took her husband, raised her children?" Caleb turned to look at his wife, his partner, the woman who'd walked through hell and come out the other side stronger. "I think she'd say thank you. Thank you for loving us when we needed it most. Thank you for making sure her children knew they were cherished. Thank you for teaching them to stand against injustice." He touched her face gently. "And thank you for healing the broken heart of a stubborn mountain man who thought he'd never love again." Nyalnish leaned against him. They watched the last of the sun disappear behind the mountains, watched the stars emerge in a sky so vast it seemed to hold infinity, and somewhere in that vast darkness, perhaps 2 women watched as well, an Apache medicine woman and a white rancher's wife, different in life but united in death by their love for the people they'd left behind. 2 women who'd taught the same lesson through different languages, that love didn't die when people did, it just transformed, passed from one generation to the next. became something bigger than any one person or people or time. It became legacy, and that legacy lived on in every child who played in that yard, in every bridge built between peoples, in every act of courage that chose hope over hate, love over fear, justice over revenge. Marcus Dalton had tried to destroy, but Caleb and Naelnish had built. And in the end, that's what mattered. Not how they started, but what they left behind. A family, a community, a future where different didn't mean enemy, where broken could become whole, where a prayer whispered by an 8-year-old child could change the world. That was their story, their truth, their gift to the generations that would follow. And it all began with a woman freezing in a barn and a man who chose to see her as human instead of other, who chose to stand when it would have been easier to turn away, who chose to love when his heart said it couldn't. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. One choice, one moment, one frozen night that becomes the beginning of something beautiful. The end.